Hey guys, it's Egan. Thanks for subscribing to my Patreon, and I'm happy to finally post this making of video for Springtrapped. And so yeah, let's just jump right into it. I guess the first things, I guess we'll look at some of the smaller characters first, like here, like here's Black Knight Ghost. These were characters that were created just for the title sequence, and yeah, I he doesn't even have like legs, and the only rig he has was hands because I just copied over the hands from the gang and gave them like a metal texture. And then he has this feather up top, which I'm actually like decently proud of. It looks pretty good. Like I don't know. I thought it looked pretty decent. And then he has these glowing green eyes. And yeah, I threw these guys in like some environments, rendered them out for the title sequence, and yeah, that's about all they were there for. Another one is this guy, Voodoo Ghost. I don't even remember the actual ghost's name. But yeah, the mask was fun to sculpt because it's a fairly stylized version of it. I had fun. I had fun sculpting this guy. Yeah, he doesn't have hands or anything because you don't see any of that. Um, he does have hair though. Let's see. Yeah, he's got two particle systems. One I think is just the base hair, and the other is like this slight fuzz to add like a little frizz to it. Yeah. So he has a bunch of children because he didn't have that much hair to begin with. Let's see. Yeah, and his honestly, hair wise, I have like some base settings that I go for. Like usually I'm in the like zero point 0.5 range for the root like diameter, stuff like that. But overall, the hair is like completely case to case what I think looks good for each character. I'm still getting the hang of blender hair particles. It took me so long to get any of these guys to where they're at. But yeah, so he is at zero point 0.3. Let's see, roughness. I mess around with these settings to taste. They don't really do anything specific for me. Like I don't ever go in to like look for these settings specifically. I just kind of mess with them and see if I like what it does, and if I don't, then I don't use it. Yeah, it's completely up to like my own personal taste. Let's see, what else? This is one of my favorite models from the whole animation. He only appears for literally like I think 1-2 seconds. But I love him so much. I tried to make the seaweed look like it was cut from like party streamers. And then yeah, his helmet. Oh my gosh, his helmet was so much fun. And then like the oh you can't oh you can kind of see it. He has this glowing light inside of his helmet that I really like. So yeah, I really like how he turned out. He was a lot of fun. And then he has this like extremely green light around him. Let's see. Yeah, all of these are different shades of green, just sunlights, because he was composited over a background. I rendered a like sunken ship underwater background, and then I composited him over it with like the glowing green effects to get that kind of like vintagey, almost like mock Pepper's Ghost effect, kind of like yeah, like Pepper's Ghost. And so I did that with him, the Ghost. Let's see, I can open up the Ghost and Elias Kingston. They were all this like Pepper's Ghosty effect. Yeah, here's the Ghost. He is literally just a sheet. I had made like a fabric simulator, and then I had a sphere here, here, and here to catch it, and then it fell. It kind of mocked a ghost shape, sort of, and then I sculpted the rest using. I sculpted the base shape, and then I went in with some like fabric brushes to add little wrinkles like this. His rig is this really. It kind of looks like a lizard. It's just this really weird. rig that I use just to like, it's just um, auto weights just to kind of get some like movement out of the fabric. I didn't need it to be perfect. And then I believe I even added some shape keys to the fabric itself. I guess I didn't. Never mind. I lied. I thought I did. But yeah. So he's just a really crude rig because he doesn't really do much, and I wanted to simulate kind of this like chunky fabric that maybe even is like super stiff. Maybe they like starched it up so it'd be easier to like manage. I don't know. But yeah, there's the ghost. Here's the owl from the opening scene. He was fun. He's based off the owls and Rudolph the Red-Nosed Reindeer. Yeah, he's a fun little model. I had fun modeling him. It was nice to take a break from like it was nice to take a break from all these super advanced characters that needed to move and talk and just do this little guy that was fairly simple. Like I'm pretty sure his rig is simple as well. Like he has a head, two wings, and then these two little things on his like his eyebrow thing, which is supposed to look like it's made out of like a thick felt and cut. And I just rigged those so I could get some jitter out of it, as if someone was like if someone was using it as a stop motion puppet, that would probably get moved around a bit, and you could see it on the final video. But yeah, that's the owl, and then here's the bat from the opening scene. This model is so crude. I did not put that much effort into it. I just wanted to get it done because I was wasting too much time on the title sequence. And you barely see him, and it's so dark. I didn't really bother to give a ton of detail, but it is based off of the bat from Mad Monster Party. It is a very crude reimagining of the bat that Dracula turns into in Mad Monster Party. Yeah, and his rig is fairly simple as well. I tried to make it a little more complicated to see if I could get some somewhat realistic wrinkles out of like I imagine that the undersides of his wings were like this like tissue paper or fabric. So I wanted to see if I could replicate that. I ended up not using these at all. I literally just flapped the wings up and down. I don't even think I moved his head at all. And yeah, I just copied him a bunch for the opening, like the title when it pops up after the bats fly by. But yeah. And then he has the basically the same particle system as every character, just really short for fur. Yeah, let's look at here's security guard. Yeah, I'm missing a couple textures. Oh well. He is yeah, he's pretty simple. I had fun sculpting him. Uh, I I named him SG Kluger because the guy in the original's name is SD Kluger for special delivery. So I just thought it was a fun joke to bring the guy from Santa Claus is Coming to Town back and rename him Security Guard Kluger instead. It's just like a fun little cameo nod. I like his boots. His boots are nice and shiny. And then he just has like a felt texture all over him, just like slight purple. And then these purple bits on his hat and tie are supposed to be black. I think I might have misplaced a texture by mistake. But yeah. Oh well. Yeah, I don't know what's going on. They're black. But yeah. So there. Just has a black tie, and yeah, and then he has shape keys for his. Yeah, I even have a shape key for the teeth. I actually ended up never turning the teeth off, but just in case I had a shape key, in case there would be any mouth shape that didn't have the teeth. But yeah, I just have all these shape keys for the different mouths. That's always fun. And I try never to do like half of a shape key. I think just going the full extreme and never blending them or tweening and like fading them in adds to the stop motion effect because it makes his mouth look really choppy, like it jumps from one shape to another. So I tried to never like blend or fade anything in. And then his eyes actually were supposed to have a little white dot. I completely forgot to do it, and I was just so like over modeling characters for this animation and wanted to get into animating that it kind of slipped my mind. But yeah, there's SG Kluger. He just has a base rig. He has the same rig as all the other human characters. It's just a rig I made, really simple IK rig with like IK controllers for the hands and feet, and then like these little knee and elbow controllers. So if I if I bend his knee, I can use this to control kind of where it like points. And so yeah, I just have this foot bone, and same with the hand. I have it rigged up with an IK, and then I assign the IK to this other ball, and I put on top of it that I made look like an empty box. And then I just assign the pole target to the armature, and then the right knee IK as well. And then I did that for each hand and foot. And then I also have a copy rotation bone, so I can like rotate his foot and his hands, because if I didn't do that, let's see. Yeah, if I didn't do that, when I try to move it, it kind of copies the rotation of the leg, and I can't really control the rotation of the foot. So I have a copy rotation on that as well, just to make it easier. I did not know about auto IK when I was making this, and I kind of wish I did. Not for the feet. I've tried auto IK for the feet since I learned about it, and it's not fun for the reason I just showed you. I need copy rotation bones. But for the hands, for stop motion styling, it's incredible, because one thing actually someone pointed it out to me recently. The only way they could tell it wasn't stop motion originally is because there were a few shots where when like their body would move, their hand would stay in the same place, as you can see there. And that's because it has an IK bone. But if I would have done auto IK, I could have used inverse kinematics like this. But then when I went to move him, it would have moved the hands with everything. Because like, you know, if you're moving a stop motion puppet and you move the whole body, his hands aren't going to stay perfectly in place. And so, yeah, that's something I wish I knew about. It would have just added a little extra to the stop motion effect of it all. But yeah, that is SG Kluger and the like basic character rig. His has one extra like specialty, which is these keys, because I wanted them to be able to kind of jitter and jangle around as if he was being puppeteered. But yeah, that's him. And all of the characters have the same rig as he does. All of the human characters. Let's see. Let's do Shaggy. Oh yeah, here's Shaggy. His head was sculpted. All of the characters' heads were sculpted from like a round cube, and they just have like multi-resolution modifiers on them. Let's see, why is it not? Yeah, there we go. Yeah, they all just have multi-res modifiers. And as you can see here, actually his has been applied already. I shouldn't have done that. Honestly, these character heads are probably far too high of a poly count because I wanted to get some of that clay detail. But yeah. And then for his hair, let's look at the particle system for his hair. Yeah, so you can see his hair there. It's got a really low amount of children particles on it right now because I'm in like viewport, but it has, it only has 10 and it has 100 in the final render. Actually did tweak his hair according to each shot. Most of the shots it's pretty much the same, but for some of the shots, especially the shots where his hair like frizzes out when he's like scared, I did some special tweaking to make it either longer or shorter, just to get that effect. But yeah, and so yeah, that's the children. I have like a little bit of like a length kind of randomizer, and then the like roughness sliders, I don't really have a particular preference with those. I just use them to taste. Like, depending on the character, I might use them a lot if I want their hair to be really kind of frizzy, or I might not use them at all if I want their hair to be like have kind of defined clumps. Because I find that the here, let's see, that like, oh, I'm doing the sideburns right now, but yeah, I find that this kind of, if you turn it up, it gets rid of like defined clump shapes, and I kind of like the clump shapes for some of these characters. His shirt is just, I modeled a boxy shirt, added like a multi-res, and then I sculpted it, and I sculpted it using, okay, I used this fabric brush. Yeah, so it's not really doing much right now because it takes a little more. But yeah, you can see kind of like that. Like, it's just this fabric simulator brush. I haven't messed with the settings a ton. So honestly, it could do more than I have used it for. It could be more intuitive than I think, but I haven't messed with the settings a ton. But yeah, that's what I did for most of the fabric in this short. Is some things I would do fabric simulators like the ghost and like the tables in the dining area, but most things I just sculpted, and then I sculpted in extra details with the fabric brush. And then texture wise, they all have this kind of like, I don't know, I was gonna say muddy. I don't think muddy is the word. They just have this color texture that has like different shades. Like his is like just these weird splotches of different shades of green to add a bit of variation to the fabric. And then it has a fabric bump over the top of it, and then a very slight particle effect, which I don't even think is noticeable in the final animation. You can kind of see it here, just to add a little bit of fuzz. Uh, I don't know how much render time I wasted over that particle effect when it's probably not visible at all. But but yeah, that's, and then he even has a few. You can see him here. Like I wanted to make it look like a few hairs from like the animators or something got like stuck on his shirt. His pants are this kind of my attempt at like a suede velvet texture. I think it turned out okay. Um, I feel like I could probably do a better texture, maybe, but like I feel like artists are their harshest critic, so it might look great and I might just hate it. But in the final thing, it ended up looking great because so much of this doesn't honestly look that great to me while I'm doing it, and it isn't until the VHS effects and lighting are right that it starts to sell as actual stop motion. But I think one of the biggest things that sells these guys as stop motion is the like fingerprint effect that I have on their like heads and how shiny they are. Um, they were originally less shiny, but I don't like the shine necessarily. I think the shine looks a bit crude, but I think it serves this purpose well because it kind of makes them look like they're a little too shiny, like they might actually be made out of like wood or plastic, whereas normal skin like puppets would be a lot less shiny. So I thought it was like an intentional error that added to them and made them look like these polished little puppets. And I believe it's the same with like his skin tone. Maybe his skin tone's a little less shiny. I can't really tell from here. But yeah, that's Shaggy. And then oh, I have slight shape keys on his eyes where he can blink, close his eyes, and his eyelids go away. And then his eyebrows are this really coarse particle effect. Yeah, they're at 2 for the diameter root, whereas everything else is around 1 or sometimes even 0.5. But I wanted these really coarse looking, like, I wanted it to look like they chopped some, like, coarse fur and used that. So, yeah. And then just some shrink wrap modifiers to keep the eyes kind of flat on or the pupils flat on the, like, whites of the eyes. And, yeah, I can walk you guys through a few of these as well. Like, here's his. Yeah, the mouth, that actually might be. So, what I have set up for the mouth is it's just shape keys, like the other characters. But for the black of the mouth, I have. Yeah, you can't even really see it. Can you see it? Yeah, you can kind of. You can kind of see it there. Yeah, so I have a flat plane for I have a flat plane of black for the black of the mouth, and then I have that modeled to be the right shape in each shape key, but then I also have it weight painted and that weight set to the shrink wrap modifier so that whatever shape it is, it always projects onto the skin at the right like it's always kind of shrink wrapped to the skin, and it never looks too like it never looks like it's jutting out too far or anything. And I just used weight painting to where it wouldn't affect the lips. It would only affect the black. And that's how I kind of do that for each character. So that I can move the mouth and it still covers the right. So you can kind of see when I turn two of them on at once how it's two separate objects. But yeah, I just do that so I can kind of keep the mouth behind the mouth kind of set up right when I change the mouth shape. And that's clipping through a little bit. I don't even think that did that in the final. But yeah, there's his like cringy, grimacy mouth for when he's like scared or something. Oh yeah, that's Shaggy. We can get Fred. Yeah, here's Fred. Fred is my favorite model out of the gang, I think. Other than maybe Scooby. I just really like how like chunky and blocky his head ended up looking. Like it looks, I don't know, it's just like warm and inviting. It looks like an actual like old puppet where it's really smooth and simple, and I don't know, it worked for me. And the little beady eyes too. He's got the same eyebrows as Shaggy. His particle effect, most characters' particles are attached to their heads. His particle is attached to this special like shape because his hair is so like round and smooth that it was difficult to do that when it was attached to his head. But attached to this, it helped me kind of get the shape. Yeah, all of the fabric on his costume is the exact same as Shaggy's, just I changed the hue of it. I think his ascot might be like a slightly silkier texture. Yeah. Yeah, it's a little silkier. Yeah, I used like a silk texture for his ascot. It's not as shiny as it should be, honestly. But yeah, and then got some shape keys for the mouth, same as all the other characters. He's the only member, actually no, him and Velma are the only members of the gang that have teeth in their mouth shapes. And I think that's because I got tired of modeling mouth shapes, and I think I reused Fred's for Velma, to be completely honest. Because, I don't know, modeling mouth shapes is frustrating because it's so meticulous to get everything in the right spot, and then also getting the black to shrink wrap in the right spot onto the face. It was just, there was a point in this process where I was just so done with characters. I was tired of them. I wanted to animate or do like sets. Yeah, and let's look at Velma. Yeah, so here's Velma. Her shirt texture, I actually am just realizing now that her shirt never had a fabric bump. I don't know if that was intentional or not. I think it might have been intentional because I wanted hers to not look like a piece of like knit fabric. I kind of wanted it to look like fuzzy, like fleece almost. And then her skirt is felt fabric. And her socks are the same as her shirt, and these straps are the same as her skirt. Her head's modeled after the dude from Mad Monster Party. I kept Mad Monster Party open throughout this like whole animation process because I don't know, the vibe of that whole short kind of lent itself to Scooby-Doo very well. So that helped me a lot in regards to like set design and lighting. The opening of that had a lot of dust on everything, and I spent a while kind of figuring out how to do a dust texture. So for the office, I could add dust all over everything. I don't even think anybody noticed, but it kind of washed everything out in a way that I liked. But yeah, so this is Velma. I love her little freckles. That's one of my favorite parts. The little open, like, circle freckles. I did all the texture painting mostly in just Blender's texture painting because it's so simple. But I think Velma and Daphne are the few that I went into Photoshop and painted because of small details like the freckles. And Daphne's like eyeshadow. Here, let's go look at Daphne. But yeah, that's Velma. So yeah, Daphne, her eyes, like her eye with the like wing on the side were a little more complicated, and the like eyebrows. Blender texture painting kind of sucks. You can't really do that much in it. It's very simple, which works okay for these guys, but when I need to get more detailed, I just kind of hop over to Photoshop. Um, but yeah, these she's pretty simple. She has a different texture than all the other gang members do on their clothes. She has this like silk texture because I wanted her dress to be made out of this like shiny silk. I honestly should have made it shinier looking back, but it looks okay. And then these are all just that like same plastic texture or wood texture as the head, just in different shades. I originally had her eyelids to where I could animate them, but it was such a pain that I just quit. Like I didn't finish it because her eyelids were so annoying to sculpt and to model and to rig. So I ditched that idea. And then she has shape keys like everyone else on the mouth. And yeah, and they all have just like shrink wrapped eyes that move like back and forth. But yeah, and then let's do Scooby. Scooby, I love Scooby's model so much. I tried to make him very simple. I could have gotten really complicated, but I wanted his head and his body to all feel like these really stiff shapes to like mock the like kind of stiff felt stop motiony puppets where like they didn't have that wide of a range of motion. So I like how he turned out. I like how his neck and his head are all one piece. I tried to make it look like the collar was like hiding the connection from the head and the neck. It's just like a blue leather texture or teal. And then I made this little key ring with like a screw modifier. And then yeah, this is sculpted, the little Scooby-Doo keychain with just a fingerprint like paint texture. So Scooby's particle effect, most of the like work of replicating felt, like that fuzzy felt, is done with literally just a felt texture that I painted some Scooby spots onto, which looks pretty good. But just to go the little extra mile, I have two particle effects on each one. One is like the close fuzz, which is just that top layer of fuzz on it. And then I have a second particle effect, which is the kind of like frizzy fuzz on it. And so, yeah, you can see it just adds that little extra touch of like magic to it. I rendered all these at pretty low samples because I kind of like, you can see it there a little bit. I kind of like the sparkle the fuzz has when it's rendered at low samples. It reminds me of Muppet fleece. Like this, it's like Antron fleece. It's the fleece they use to make like Kermit the Frog, all those. It has this sparkly look, and that it reminded me of this. So I intentionally rendered a lot of stuff at low samples because I really like that effect. Um, it's subtle in the final animation, but I like it. Scooby's rig is, I don't know, kind of the same as everyone else's. It's just in the shape of a dog with a tail. Uh, he's the only one with like a posable jaw. All the rest just have the like mouths that change shape, whereas he's the only one with a jaw that's posable. This is a little sweat droplet from when he was on the stage. And yeah, you can see his little hat there from when he was dressed as Freddy as well in the chase scene. But yeah, his feet are all like inverse kinematics. I was gonna add that to his tail, ended up not doing it because I kind of like, as crude as it is to have to animate it without inverse kinematics, I think the final product, all those like human errors of trying to animate it, add to the stop motion feel. Yeah, he has the same eyebrows as Shaggy. Um, his eyes, I kind of like how they were kind of just one solid white shape instead of two. His head was inspired by this one Scooby toy that I found, and I kind of used it to help inform the shape of his head, but I tried to keep it kind of clunky and crude looking because I wanted it to feel like a puppet that didn't. I wanted it to feel like it was made as a puppet and it needed to move, and it maybe had some limitations. And so I like kind of how puffy and I don't know, blocky he looks. And then there's like a slight fabric effect on the ears because I wanted it to look. This was inspired by a deer from, I think Peter Cottontail, maybe the Rankin Bass movie. But yeah, there's a deer in one of the Rankin Bass movies that has like felt on the back of its ears, but then this fabric is like stitched in on the front and it's kind of wrinkled. So I tried to emulate that there. And yeah, I also love Scooby's nose. His just like giant, shiny plastic nose. And yeah, that's Scooby. Um, Next would be Springtrap. I guess it's the last of the characters that I have there. Springtrap, I love how Springtrap turned out. He's actually really, when you look at the model itself, he's really simple and he's kind of bad like looking. Like he's not really that well made, but I did that on purpose. I wanted him to feel like this really clunky, poorly sculpted puppet. Like I didn't want him to be too detailed. I feel like what ruins the like stop motion look is like too many details. So I wanted to make him kind of this simple puppet where most of the detail was like painted on. He's inspired by Space Kook, just because Space Kook has this spacesuit in the original Scooby cartoon, and I like the segmented look of the spacesuit, and that reminded me of like FNAF animatronic design. And so I used that. This is actually the second Springtrap design. This whole video started as just the unmasking gag, and I had a completely different Springtrap modeled just for them to unmask him, and that would be it. But then when I decided to do the full episode, I ended up trying to remodel him with more inspiration from like a Scooby villain, where it's cartoony and kooky and fun, but still has a little like creepy factor to it, which I feel like this guy accomplishes well. I really like how he turned out. He has, let's see. Yeah, he has a particle effect. He's the same as Scooby. He's just a felt texture with a slight particle effect and that like sparkly effect that I really like. And so yeah, most of the work, like I said, is done with the felt texture to emulate that fuzz and felt. But I just think the actual particle effects just kick it up a notch and take it to the next level. But yeah, and his eyes. He does not have eyes. His eyes were all drawn in with grease pencil in each scene. So yeah. That's Springtrap. Oh, and then since he's a Springlock suit, I wanted to add some kind of mechanism like look to him, and these were kind of a nod to Frankenstein, of course, but I also just like how they're kind of like normally sized bolts. Like they look. I like adding to a lot of sets and models. I like adding things that kind of ruin the illusion, like ruin the stop motion illusion by adding a full sized bolt. So it kind of tells you like, oh, this is much smaller than the narrative would lead you to believe. I did that a lot in my Pee-wee animation. I used a lot of like actual toy sized toys to kind of, in actual stop motion, it would kind of ruin the effect, but in what I'm doing, it kind of helps sell the effect to add intentional mistakes and errors to kind of give away the scale and sell further that this is stop motion and not Blender with no scale whatsoever. And so yeah, that's Springtrap. Yeah, that's the last of the models, but I want to see if I still have it. Yeah, let's see. He's right here. I moved some of these models around, so I might be missing some textures. No, he's all good. Okay. So yeah, this is the original Springtrap model. Um it was inspired by Peter Cottontail like a bit more because I wasn't planning for it to be this big animation. I originally just wanted to do like a quick joke, and so they were just going to take his mask off. This is also the second Afton head I had. So here's the Springtrap head, and yeah, and he had the bolts originally. I don't know where they went. Oh, they're like under there. They got moved. But yeah, he had the bolts. Yeah, so that's the original Springtrap model, but I also have, let's move this guy. Oh, whoops. I also had this guy. I had like a dead version of Afton for the original sculpted, but I just wasn't feeling it. I didn't like the style of it. I don't know, I didn't like it. He looks okay. I just didn't love it. And then that was what the original Springtrap head was modeled over, so his eyes fit the sockets a little better. It's an okay model. I like what I ended up with way more. I liked it way better. And so yeah, that is it had the same like fuzz particle effect. But yeah, that's the original, that's the first thing I modeled actually. And then I ended up going a completely different direction. One thing I do wish I would have added to the final is adding these whiskers that he has. I did not do that for the final Springtrap puppet, and I wish I would have because I love the look of the whiskers. Yeah, and then he has like these pearls. The pearl texture was fun, and then he also has this sparkly texture on his robe, which is just the Ghostface robe texture changed to purple from my other Ghostface animation. And then you can see I tried to peel the felt back on the bottom of his feet to add like errors that would convince you that this is like a puppet that was glued together and stuff. But yeah, that's the original Springtrap model. Now let's look at some of the rooms. Let's see. Yeah, so here's the office. It's gonna take a second to load because the locations have a good bit more polygons and textures. Yeah, here's the office. It's literally like this is it. The I modeled just what you see on camera. Yeah, here's the door. Slides up and down. The texture on the door is mostly hand painted. You can kind of see the like dust texture that I was talking about on top of everything. That's taken from the opening of Mad Monster Party in the lab. It looked so dusty, and I liked how gray and washed out it looked, so I tried to replicate that. And so I used like it's a texture that's based on normals, and it reads all of the upward facing normals and only applies the texture to that. So that's kind of how I did that. And then these spider webs they're a hair texture because I wanted them to have this like weird, shiny, sparkly, spindly spider web texture. Um, and these TVs, I wanted to model them to look like they were made out of like thin sheets of paper or cardboard. My my design philosophy changes, or not changes, but kind of comes and goes when with these things. Like some things I just model like they just need to look how they need to look. And then other things I try to go the extra mile to make them look like miniature props to really sell it. And I feel like this busted seam here helps sell the effect of like a miniature. And so yeah, you can see this is just the office scene for when they walk in. So it's lit slightly differently than when you see the desk. When you see the desk, the lighting is a little different. But yeah, so that's the office. I've just got like a red light out in the hallway. I imagine, even though this is not like canonical within the lore, I just imagine it's like an exit sign, like in FNAF 3. Um, and then the buttons. I had fun with the buttons. I tried to make them more of like a old school, like, I don't know. I tried to make them look like they were designed by someone trying to design this room in the 1960s or 70s rather than just redoing the game buttons. I like that a lot. And then just these weird little details on the walls. I drew the Celebrate poster in Photoshop. I just wanted it to look like an old 60s cartoon. And then, yeah, here's the cupcake. It's really low poly right now. And it has a little LED bulb. It was going to light up originally, but I didn't like how it looked. And then all these little drawings were done by my little brother, Hosea. He just drew me a sheet full of little Five Nights at Freddy's drawings. And let's see, you might be able to see the full thing. It's literally just like, yeah, it's like a full sheet of drawings, and I just took the UV and dragged it around to pick up whichever one I wanted to pick up for each wall drawing. So yeah, that is the office. Here is the kitchen. Yeah, so the kitchen, there's where Shaggy would sit when he's covered in pots. I think he might be in here. Yeah, there he is. So this is just, it's the kitchen. There's some pizza boxes. You can't even really see them in the final cut of the thing. Or not the final cut. I'm not Zack Snyder. Just the final shot that I did. You never were able to see them. Then there's just, all of these pots are like 3 or 4 pots that I just retextured slightly and threw around the kitchen. Yeah, these pots are just waiting in there to be thrown by Scooby. And yeah, I don't know. It's just like a crudely modeled kitchen. I just looked up an industrial kitchen and tried to kind of make a kitchen. And then, yeah, to everyone that said it, yes, this was a Don't Hug Me, I'm Scared reference. And then the It's Me and kitchen magnets. I tried to keep all of the poles of everything really thick because I feel like the thinner you make stuff, the more detailed it looks and the more it makes it look large scale. But when you make everything slightly thicker and clunkier than it should be, it kind of, like these are all way too big for the kitchen that they're in. But I feel like that adds to like the miniature feel of it because it's like the scale is off and it just, I don't know, it adds something to me. But yeah, there's Shaggy and I think Scooby's in here as well. Yeah, there's Scooby digging through the cabinets looking for pizza. And yeah, that's the kitchen. I don't know where I put the door with the pizza sauce on the floor, but that's around here somewhere. It's in my files somewhere. Now let's look. Yeah, so here's the hallway for when Scooby and Shaggy are running up and are walking down the hallway looking for the kitchen. Let it load. Yeah, so here's the hallway. These are all just like crying child kind of sloppy paintings I threw together in Photoshop. I want them to look kind of weird and creepy and not completely natural. And so, yeah, I like how those turned out. You can see Springtrap back there waiting to make his first appearance. Or first full appearance. He has like a shadow in the door in the opening of the episode. But yeah. And then, yeah, you can see they're like walking animation. I did not try that hard to match their feet up for this scene because you don't see the feet. So you can see there's a lot of feet sliding going on here. But yeah, down here's the bathrooms and the safe room down here. All the stars. The stars are one of my favorite details from Five Nights at Freddy's. So I love all of those. And yeah, that's the hallway. And most of the restaurant is just redecorated with the same stuff I built for the office, like little TVs and crates. Because it's kind of that way in the first game. A lot of people also mention that it's Springtrap. And I use the first game's location. But it's like, 1, Springtrap was found in the first game's location. But 2, I'm pretty sure the first game location was a Fredbear Family Diner at one point in the lore. I don't know. The FNAF lore is so confusing at this point. Anyways, this isn't a FNAF lore video. This is a making of video. So that's the hallway. Let's see. Here's the safe room. Yeah, so it's attached to the hallway. I deleted everything in the hallway just to save my computer a little bit. I'm also not, I guarantee you I'm not doing this the best way. I think I could just have locations and models and then link them to one another and animate in like separate scene files. But I did this the sloppiest way. I'm terrible at like file sorting. So please don't judge me for the way I sorted and saved the like nightmarish amounts of sets and models and stuff. I'm already working on being better at like file organization for my next animation. But yeah, this is the safe room. This corner over here is kind of where Golden Freddy Scooby was. That was a different thing. It's just a different set. But yeah, there's William sitting down there. Um, I modeled a completely different Springtrap head for when she holds it and looks at the spring locks on the inside, because this head's completely, it's not hollow. It's just a solid piece. Um, let's see if I have that. I don't know if I have it here. I don't know why I wouldn't. You can see here in some shots like this. Let it load. So the backgrounds took forever to render, or all of this took forever to render, but it took even longer when I was, oh, there it is. But it took even longer to render when I was doing full-on backgrounds. So oftentimes I would render a single background image and then I would just put it on a plane, because that it would take less time rendering the background and would just focus on the character, and I could get much faster renders. And so I did that for most close-ups of characters. If the background was still, it's a plane. It's not a model. But yeah, you can see here's the little fake Springtrap head for the spring lock, which is literally just a screw modifier thing to make a spring and a rod with a metal texture. That's all it is. And the head looks so terrible. Like, it's such a sucky model, but I knew it would only be viewed from like the underside, so I didn't need it to look that great. But yeah. Let's see what else I've got. Here's the bathroom from the title sequence with Shaggy. I tried to imitate like saran wrap for the water. It's not the best, but it looks okay. Oh, they're not even smooth shaded. Whoops. What else? Oh yeah, here's the exterior. This was such a pain. The amount of trees and leaves and stuff. Oh, it was such a pain. Like, look at all of this. This is how tiny the characters are here. It's such a pain. I ended up not even using most of it. You can barely see most of it, but I just built it out because I wanted it. Let's see. This might kill my computer to render the like textures because there's so much going on. But yeah, I tried to make it look kind of like a miniature. I didn't want to make it look realistic, so I tried to make the ground look like fake, like grass flocking. Then I tried to make the trees look like they were actual little branches broken off of trees and stuck down in the ground. And then I wanted these to be like different colors than the grass. I wanted it to look kind of handmade. And then the pizzeria is actually incredibly tiny, which I didn't mind. It was kind of funny to me. Like, yeah, they couldn't make it much bigger. They didn't have the budget, so it's just different. It looks different sizes. It's like a TARDIS. And then I have like frosted glass on the window with lights behind it, which is where Springtrap walks in the opening scene. Do I have the mystery machine anywhere? Let's see. I'm like worried that these textures are all going to be missing because I've been moving files around and I discovered that, nope, they're there. Okay, we're good. But yeah, so there you can see the owl flying away. And this is a much smaller scene because I don't even think, at this point, I don't even think I had modeled Freddy's. This was just like a quick render. I think this was the first shot that I rendered, was them pulling up. But yeah, so there they are. The particle effects are turned off to like save my computer. But here's the mystery machine. I tried to mimic the original cartoon's way of having the detailed lettering, but then the super blocky coloring underneath. It was just my fun nod to the original cartoon. And then in the 2000s movies, there's always this like really dark, like airbrushed exhaust, like what's the word? I don't know. Like remnants of the exhaust. There's a word I'm thinking of, but I don't know what it is. But I just loved the look of that really weird black spot on the back of it, so I added that on there. And then the handlebars are the handlebars and the wheels are both just ripped from the Spider-Man police van for the like Spider-Man Scream animation I did, where they're like pointing, Spider-Man pointing me. So I reuse stuff quite often because modeling things can be a pain when you already have it. But yeah, that's the Mystery Machine. I think I actually let me show you guys the stage. Yeah, I think this is the last thing. I think that might be everything. But yeah, here's the show stage where they've got their little costumes on. And yeah, the curtains. I like the curtain texture. It's the Scream texture. The Scream robe texture, but in purple, so I can get the little glittery bits. It reminds me of the I think the original game has like sparkly curtains, so that's why I went with that. And then the cloud back here. Let's see. The clouds, this is the same particle I used for the clouds in the opening scene and the clouds for when they crash or when Springtrap crashes into the safe room. It's just this particle texture. It's just a basic particle texture. Let's see. It's got a curl kink to it, which kind of achieves that kind of curled up cotton look. And then it's like most things I do, like a point. Actually, it's smaller, I think. Yeah, it's much smaller. But I also, like I said, I'm terrible with blender scale, so it could be all scaled out and like messed up. But the hair particle root is much smaller. It's at a 0.05. And then the randomizer is at 0.9, but everything else is left at 0 in the roughness. And so yeah, it's literally just I'm not a particle master. I literally just screw around until I kind of like how it looks. But that's kind of what those look like. And they're just really tiny particles. And then also all of these scenes are rendered at 1440 by 1080, which is 3 by 4 or 4 by 3, which is like the VHS aspect ratio. Let me pull up. I'll pull up the dining hall. Well, yeah, here's the dining hall. I just modeled. Honestly, all of these chairs are the same one as the one in the office. I just modeled a new back for it and a new seat for it, but it's the same metal. And then I added a star to some of them. And yeah, this is the dining hall. It's literally just like a blank room with some stars and some drawings and a bunch of tables. And while animating these guys coming up and down, this shot, by the way, took forever. Most of the shots were like one or two characters and pretty quick. Or like even if there were a bunch of characters, they didn't really move much other than their heads. But the chase scene was so frustrating to animate because so much was like they were reliant on one another and interacting with one another. So I couldn't just add subtle movements for fun. I had to like really think through their complete animation so they would properly interact with one another, and that took forever. There's a little particle effect on this hat here for the little fuzzy bit on top of it. Yeah, which I like. It's the same as the birthday hat Scooby wears in the beginning that he takes off. Lighting wise, I know someone asked about lighting. Most of these scenes I have, let's see, I have a bunch of blue lights kind of around. Like most of it's lit with these like bluish, grayish lights, but then I will add a overhead like pinkish light. I don't know what it is. I just love the look of it. And a lot of they did that a lot in Mad Monster Party, or maybe not Mad Monster Party as much. In Santa Claus is Coming to Town, I noticed a few scenes where there was a lot of pink light coming from overhead. So I really liked that. And so I incorporated it here. And then in a lot of scenes, I even have some I have like I have the pink light above, and then I'll throw in like kind of a yellowy pinkish light kind of on their faces just to light them up. Like I did that in here. Let's open the safe room back up because that's one of my favorite lighting setups. Like here with Scooby. Yeah. So yeah, I have blue lighting everywhere. I don't even know if I have an overhead pink here. Do I? Let's see. I don't think I do. Yeah, I do. It's less pink, but it's still pink. Yeah, I have an overhead pink, and then I just have this spotlight that's a similar like pinkish kind of warm salmony color. I don't know. I like the color pink a lot, and it looks kind of like dreamy and childlike. And so instead of just doing starch yellow lights that look like tungsten lights, I like adding the pink because it adds just a little bit of like color to it, in my opinion. So you have all of these blue lights kind of making the place look shadowy and creepy, and then you have this bright pink light on Scooby, and then on most of the characters in most of the scenes. It's that way. The opening scene was a little different, but not much, just because I added just an extra harsh like sunlight for the like moonlight. But most of the scenes are lit pretty similarly. The colors might shift slightly. But yeah, that's about it. And then let's look at compositing. I used the same compositing as my Pee-wee animation. So yeah, here's the compositor. I have like this VHS effect, which is like nuts, like crazy. Oh, and you can see the Ninja Turtles little teaser I did in the back. But yeah, this is absolutely nuts. This started as like a VHS compositor I found online, but I kind of tweaked it myself to get it to the point that I liked because I was just screwing around with like VHS stuff. And then all of these are like these aren't on right now because this is just a photo, and these were all for video. But I have like this transform. It is keyframed, and I added like a curve that's like this jitter. So when you're watching it, it like jitters back and forth and up and down slightly, like it was shot on film and then moved to VHS tape. And then I also have brightness and contrast I can mess with. And then I have this node group here, which is just a slight lens distortion to add a little bit. It's subtle. I think people overdo lens distortion, but I just like the little bit of fuzz it can add to the edge of an image. And then this is just like some slight color correction, which changes depending on the animation and the shot. And then there's a slight blur. I don't even remember why I added the blur. Do I? What does that look like without it? And it's about the same. Yeah, it's very subtle blur. It just adds to the like fuzzy VHS feel of it. And then just the viewer and compositing node. And I would just the episode was composited in full because I didn't really color grade it that much. I rendered out the whole episode in Premiere, and then through the entire episode, it was like 7,000 frames total. Maybe, actually, no, it was 8,000. It was like 7,900 something. So it was about 8,000 frames total, and I just let it render the entire episode in completion. And at first I had some trouble because I animated at 12 frames a second, and in some cases even 8. But then this was set at 24, and I had some trouble getting it back to where it wouldn't, like the time discrepancy wasn't too bad. But yeah, that's Springtrapped. Let's see. Let's see if I can pull up some of the vocal effects. Honestly, the vocals literally were just a high and low pass filter. That was it. I just added a high pass filter and a low pass filter, and I messed around with that until it kind of sounded like an old TV show. And I didn't really do it. I did a slight version of that for all the characters, but then I did like a grander version of that for the whole thing to give it that VHS sound. And that's about it. Premiere's taking forever to open. Yeah, so here's the final yeah, that's the final episode. This is like the final thing, which is where I applied the audio effects. You can see I edited some stuff after the fact, after I rendered it in full. But most of the audio, yeah, it has a high pass and then a low pass, which are at about 104,000. I think that's hertz. I don't know. I'm not an audio engineer. It's just I just do that to like by ear until it sounds right. And so that's just applied over the whole episode to give it that VHS-y sounding, like kind of crackly, muffled sound. And then let's see. And this is the complete episode. And what I did is I rendered, because all the music is from the original Scooby-Doo, so I didn't want to add that many effects to it. So I rendered the audio, I rendered the dialogue and the music and sound effects separately, so I could apply effects separately, but I didn't want to go through and apply effects to every individual voice. So I rendered them all out as one voice track so I could apply one effect to the whole thing. But because the music and stuff already kind of sounded old, I didn't want to take it too far. But yeah, this is the complete edit. I just have these scenes, which are separate projects, and I can tab into those projects, and that's where you'll find every individual shot and audio file. And yeah. But yeah, that's Springtrapped. Thank you guys so much for being a part of my Patreon and for watching the video and supporting me. And I'm working on a Ninja Turtles one now. I redid all of the turtles because I didn't like how the first models I showed you guys looked. But it's going to be a fun crossover. I kind of don't want to reveal what the crossover is because the way I wrote the script, it's actually revealed kind of halfway through in a really fun way. So I kind of want everybody to get to experience it how I like wrote it. And so I'll be sharing Ninja Turtle stuff with you guys. I probably won't post much of the like secret crossover until it's done, and then I'll share it all with you guys. But yeah, thanks for your support. Thanks for being here. And I guess until next time, thank you guys so much.